911, what's your emergency?
Yes, I need Dakota County 911.
This is him. What's wrong, dear?
Listen, 681 Swan Johnson Road. Somebody has my daughter. Somebody in full camouflage got Holly. They grabbed her and took her to the woods. Please, get everybody out there.
This is the silence after the 911 call of Karen Bobo. A silence that screamed louder than her frantic words. Somebody has my daughter. The phone clicked dead in her hand, severing the last thread of normalcy, leaving her adrift in a sudden, chilling void. The kitchen, moments ago humming with morning routines, now pulsed with a terrifying stillness, thick with the unspoken, gut-wrenching question, where was Holly? And had her desperate plea even been enough to bring her back? Welcome to Beyond the Crime, where we look into every corner of the crime files. It's the tragic case of Holly Bobo, a young nursing student who disappeared in Decatur County, Tennessee, in April 2011. Before we go ahead, please subscribe to our channel and like the story. Decatur County, Tennessee, population 2,500, was a quilt of dense woods and sprawling farms. In this insular world, Holly Bobo, 20, balanced nursing textbooks at the University of Tennessee with hymns from her church choir. Shy but radiant, she shared her devout Christian home with teacher mom Karen, father Dana, and protective older brother Clint. Music ran in their blood. Cousin Whitney Duncan was a country star, but Holly's heart beat for healing. Quietly determined, she hid a playful wit behind soft-spoken manners. Drew Scott, her boyfriend, had sealed their future with a promise ring, a silver vow to build roots in Decatur soil. Her days blurred between anatomy studies and dreaming of scrubs, stethoscopes, and a life anchored by love. April 13th, 2011 began in pre-dawn stillness. At 4:30 a.m., Holly hunched over notes at the kitchen table, lamplight pooling on textbooks. Karen packed her lunch, peanut butter, an apple, before leaving for work. Outside, mist threaded through pines. By 7:45 a.m., she'd ace her exam. By noon, she'd tease Drew about his failed turkey hunt. But Decatur's woods hid more than deer. Karen Bobo, recalling, she was sitting at the kitchen table studying, and I kissed her goodbye and told her I loved her, just like every other morning. At 7:30 a.m., her boyfriend Drew called her cell phone. He was out turkey hunting on Holly's grandmother's land. After the brief conversation, Holly gathered her belongings and made her way to the attached carport, ready to head to school. Around 7:45 a.m., James Barnes, a neighbor, couldn't ignore the sounds of an argument next door. He heard a woman's voice shouting at someone to stop. Intrigued and concerned, James peered into the woods, but the source of the commotion remained hidden. The next chilling sound he heard were screams that sent shivers down his spine. Troubled by what he had heard, James promptly called his mother while driving to work, urging her to inform Karen about the disturbing noise he had overheard. Meanwhile, the family dog's persistent barking roused Holly's brother Clint from his sleep. He checked what was happening and was met with unfamiliar voices filled with tension. As he raised the blinds of the window, he saw two figures on the carport, both kneeling near the garage, engaged in what seemed like a heated exchange. He recognized that one of the figures was Holly and assumed the other was her boyfriend, Drew. The man wore a camouflage outfit, a detail that led Clint to believe it was Drew. They had spoken the night before, and Clint knew Drew was heading out for turkey hunting that very morning. Confused, Clint hesitated to intervene in a potential argument between the two. He had just awakened and was uncertain of the situation, so he attempted to reach his mom instead to ask if Holly didn't have school. However, the calls went unanswered, so he left a text message, hoping she would call back. Meanwhile, James's mother relayed the details to Karen, and the concerned woman immediately called home. Clint answered, seeking clarification on Holly's school plan since she was out there with Drew. It was the moment Karen realized something was amiss.
I hadn't been in the cafeteria very long, and the secretary of the school came to the cafeteria, and she said that the neighbor had called and said she didn't want to alarm me, but she thought she heard screams coming from the house. So that's not a phone call that I got every day. I'd never gotten a phone call like that, so I almost instantly got into a panic at that point, walking pretty fast back to in the school, because our cafeteria is outside the school. So I go back inside the building, and I went and used the phone, and I called.
Where did you go? You said you go back in the building. Where?
To the library. Okay. To the closest phone I could get to, which was normally would have been the office phone, but I must have looked over there and there were parents bringing their kids in, so that's why I used the library phone. But I called Clint and I asked my son Clint what's going on. And he said, did Holly not have school today? And I said, yes, why? And he said, well, I think she's out here with Drew. And I don't know what made me say it. This instant panic came over me, and I said, that's not Drew. Call all the neighbors, I think is what I said. And then I ran over to the office, and I called 911. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember they said it was Henderson County, and we live in Decatur County, so I hung up. I think I fell on the floor at that point. And I guess I called Clint back, but I don't really remember now if it was from the library phone or the office phone, and he was still talking about, was Holly not going to school today when she turkey hunting with Drew? And I said, that's not Drew, and at some point I said, get a gun and shoot him.
Clint was confused and asked his mother if she wanted him to shoot Drew. However, Karen hung up the phone. Her son then went to the back door and observed Holly and the man walking toward the woods. Holly wasn't being dragged and walked of her own accord. Responding to his mother's plea, Clint retrieved a gun and stepped outside through an open garage where he saw a puddle of blood near Holly's car. Fueled by concern, he dialed 911. Simultaneously, Karen made her own distress call to emergency services. She headed home with a friend driving her because she was panicking. Karen Bobo. Home shortly after to find the property swarming with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, or TBI, along with the FBI, SWAT, and U.S. Marshals. The scene, however, seemed chaotic and disjointed, with people standing idly, seemingly unsure of what steps to take. Growing impatient, Dana implored the authorities to act swiftly, urging them to bring Holly back. With suspicion looming over someone who possibly knew Holly, her routine, and the surroundings, Dana grappled with the thought that the abductor might have been acquainted with his daughter. The investigators later confirmed that the blood stain in the garage was indeed Holly's. This confirmed that the woman was in danger, so the entire community of Decatur County rallied together to find her. Authorities, search dogs, helicopters, and thousands of volunteers combed through the area day after day, hoping for any sign of the missing woman. The police also reached out to AT&T to trace Holly's cell phone. They tracked the ping and found that her phone had traversed Decatur County, heading north toward a wooded area near Interstate 40 before taking a southern route by another path. The cell phone's movement stopped at around 8:30 to 9 a.m. on Gooch Road. The police soon looked at the possibility that the suspect might be inside the house, leading Clint to find himself under scrutiny. Authorities sought to eliminate any doubts. They investigated him right away, finding possible scratches on his body. His computer was searched, his cell phone monitored, and he underwent polygraph tests twice. Eventually, he was cleared of any involvement in his sister's disappearance. The days and weeks after the abduction revealed a trail of evidence along country roads. Holly's belongings were scattered at random, including her homework, notebook, cell phone, and the lunch her mother had prepared for her that morning. A week had passed since Holly's abduction, and the community gathered for a solemn vigil, holding on to hope and praying for her safe return. In the face of uncertainty, Decatur County clung to the unity that defined small-town communities, determined to bring Holly home.
When Holly was at home, she'd be asleep. Her hand would be kind of folded like this, and I would just slip my hand in her hand for just a few seconds. And I remember doing that after, trying to feel her, thinking if I could just feel her hand in my hand.
As weeks passed, the names Zach Adams, his brother Dylan, cousin Jason Autry, and friend Shane Austin became focal points in the investigation surrounding Holly's abduction. These men were known in the community as delinquents and had a notorious reputation for their involvement with illicit substances. Of the group, Zach Adams stood out on the police radar. He had a long list of criminal history, including arrests for illegal substance-related crimes, robbery, and assault. He had even shot his own mother in the knee in February 2004 and, in February 2005, threatened to kill his grandparents. The police were aware of Zach's troubled past, so they decided to pay a visit to his home. Despite the suspicion surrounding him, Zach vehemently denied any involvement in Holly's disappearance. He provided an alibi, claiming he was at home with his girlfriend, Rebecca Earp, and his brother Dylan on the morning Holly went missing. There wasn't enough evidence to warrant an arrest, so the police let him go. The authorities shifted their focus to another figure in Decatur County, Terry Britt, a registered offender who lived close to Holly's home. Britt had spent a significant portion of his life in prison for kidnapping and engaging in criminal conduct. He was known for a history of targeting young, blue-eyed, blonde women, someone like Holly. His residence in northern Decatur County coincided with the general direction of Holly's phone on the day she vanished. When the police knocked on Britt's door, his immediate response was a preemptive denial. Even before the officers uttered a word, he proclaimed his innocence, asserting that he hadn't taken advantage of anyone. This reaction was prompted by the news of Holly's disappearance that had spread through the community. Britt's alibi claimed that he was buying a bathtub with his wife at the salvage yard. However, the store had no record of such a sale. Authorities had growing suspicions and obtained a search warrant. Cadaver dogs were brought in to scour his property. The dogs signaled potential traces in 2 of Britt's vehicles and various tools around his house. Despite seizing these items for DNA testing, no conclusive evidence surfaced. To dig deeper, law enforcement resorted to wiretapping Britt's phone and bugging his house, hoping to catch any incriminating conversations. However, the surveillance efforts yielded no breakthroughs, leaving many questioning whether Britt should be absolved of suspicion. However, a recording of a conversation between Britt and TBI agent Terry Dicus came up, in which the suspect appeared to indulge in unsettling fantasies about Holly's kidnapping. Terry Britt, on recording.
She's young, pretty, perfect, somewhat body. Okay, like a toy. He can't wait to get her to wherever he's going to take her to, because he's wanting that body. But here comes the reality. Now I've got a body. What am I going to do with it? If you keep it, you got to feed it. You got to hide it. And if you kill it, what are you going to do with it?
Despite this disturbing content, Britt maintained his innocence, and investigators struggled to find substantial evidence linking him to Holly's disappearance. Later, a handwritten receipt for the bathtub was discovered in Britt's safe. With the case at an impasse, investigators decided to move away from Terry Britt. For 3 years, the investigation seemed to stall until a significant development unfolded in February 2014. Zach Adams, one of the 4 men initially questioned about Holly's disappearance, found himself in trouble again. This time, he faced charges of robbery and threatening his girlfriend's sister at gunpoint. Zach was incarcerated for these charges. During his imprisonment, his brother Dylan faced legal issues of his own for stealing firearms. Dylan had a learning disability and a below-average IQ. His grandfather noted that he often muddled facts and stories. Despite this, authorities deemed him self-sufficient enough, as he managed to get a driver's license. Dylan eventually secured release for the gun charges through a plea deal. The conditions stipulated that he would live with a retired police officer who happened to be a friend of the Bobo family. 5 weeks after Dylan moved in with the retired police officer, A call to emergency services brought a new revelation into the already complex case. Dylan claimed to possess information about Holly's fate. According to his account, he had seen Holly on the morning of April 13th in Zach's living room, seated on a green chair, wearing a pink shirt. In the room were two others, his cousin Jason and their friend Shane. Dylan further alleged that these men had taken advantage of Holly, suggesting sexual assault and even videotaping the disturbing acts. Over 3 years, Zach had consistently made unsettling jokes about Holly's disappearance, confidently asserting that the police would never find her. Reports even surfaced that he boasted about exploiting Holly. He claimed to have recorded himself engaging in reprehensible acts with her, which was in line with Dylan's testimony.
And if you lie to me one time, I'm getting up and walking out and we're done. You destroyed evidence. You withheld information. That ain't how this works. Was Holly Bobo kidnapped? Was she raped? Raped by you?
However, the alleged videotape remained elusive to law enforcement. Rebecca Earp, Zach's ex-girlfriend.
He said he would tie me up just like he did Holly Bobo and nobody would ever see me again.
While the purported videotape was never located, Dylan's initial confession was later recanted amid allegations of coercion. These statements led to the arrests of Dylan, Zach, Jason, and Shane. It was later revealed that both Zach and Jason had been students of Karen, Holly's mother, during their grade school years. On April 30th, 2014, Shane was granted immunity in exchange for his cooperation. However, just 3 weeks later, this immunity was revoked due to allegations that he had ceased to cooperate. 5 months later, on September 13th, 2014, a local man named Larry Stone made a grim discovery while hunting for ginseng in the woods. Unearthed were a human skull and a bucket containing human bones. The skull bore a bullet hole, the trajectory piercing from the back through the left cheekbone. These remains were confirmed to be Holly Bobo's. Alongside the skeletal evidence, personal items like purses, lipstick, pens, and even Holly's inhaler were found.
It was right around here last September when he found a bucket.
I was facing the ravine this way, and it was like somebody, hey, turn around, here I am.
He turned around and then found something that would change this case forever.
You're standing there looking at remains that you know belongs to somebody that was loved, and you're sitting there looking at the ground, and you're seeing your daughter laying there in her face. It hits home. I just want to say to the Bobos that I'm sorry for the loss.
During the trial, the emotional toll on Holly's family was evident when Karen passed out upon seeing the recovered belongings. As the investigation pressed on, Shane, one of the suspects, was found dead in a hotel room in February 2015, having taken his own life. The circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear. The 3 remaining suspects, Zach, Dylan, and Jason, spent 3 more years in legal battles, pleading not guilty to charges of kidnapping, criminal physical conduct, and murder in connection with Holly's case. Throughout this period, investigators relentlessly pursued confessions from any of the accused. In 2017, after years of maintaining his innocence, Jason struck a deal with prosecutors. He agreed to accept an 8-year sentence for charges of aggravated kidnapping and solicitation to commit murder in exchange for testifying against the other suspects at the trial set for September 2017. Jason's testimony, however, was viewed with skepticism due to his criminal history and the leniency he received in his plea deal. In his testimony, Jason presented an account that was different from Dylan's earlier statements. According to Jason, he went to Shane's house believing they would be making illicit substances, only to find that Zach, Dylan, and Shane had already kidnapped and attacked Holly. Jason claimed to have witnessed Dylan burning items in a large barrel while Zach stood by his pickup truck. Allegedly, Zach then asked Jason for help in burying a body wrapped in a blanket in the back of his truck. Jason sought recreational substances in exchange and agreed to assist Zach in hiding Holly's body. On their way, he noticed the absence of shovels or a pickaxe in the truck, prompting Jason to suggest disposing of the body in the water. Jason Autry, testifying, he claimed that Holly's intestines were the only thing keeping her afloat, and in a gruesome and highly sensationalized part of his testimony, Jason claimed this led him to gut her so that the body would stay underwater. After this, they drove to an abandoned spot next to the Tennessee River with the intent of disposing of Holly's body. On the way to this location, Zach callously bragged about exploiting Holly in Shane's grandmother's barn and claimed that Dylan and Shane had also taken advantage of her. Upon reaching the desolate spot by the river, Jason said that as they dropped Holly's body on the ground, he witnessed her foot move. He also heard a faint sound of distress coming from the blanket. Disturbed by this, he alerted Zach, prompting him to pull out a pistol from his car to shoot her in the head. The gun went off thrice, and they soon heard a nearby boat approaching. In fear of getting caught, the group hastily placed the body back in the truck. After this incident, Zach allegedly approached Jason with another macabre request, to murder his brother Dylan. The motive was to silence Dylan, who incessantly spoke about what had happened with Holly. The exact motive for Holly's kidnapping remained somewhat unclear, though sexual assault was argued as a primary factor by the prosecution. In exchange, Zach promised Jason a portion of his inheritance once his wealthy grandfather passed away. Jason accepted Zach's offer and took Dylan out fishing on the Tennessee River in a bass boat, intending to shoot and dispose of him in the river. However, his plan was interrupted by another fisherman who recognized Dylan and knew his grandfather. This encounter thwarted Jason's intentions, and he never attempted again. Furthermore, Jason asserted that Zach had claimed they were at Holly's residence that fateful morning to teach Clint how to cook illicit substances. However, they arrived early and encountered Holly, who screamed when she saw them. This account presents one possible motive, but the actual reason for the abduction remains debated. Clint denied the allegations. After all, he had already been cleared after initially becoming a person of interest. With Jason's testimony, the primary suspect was Zach and no one else. However, various issues surrounded Zach's involvement in Holly's case. When authorities mapped out the ping of his phone against Holly's that morning, they found that he was miles away from the location where they tracked Holly's phone. Significantly, there was no direct physical evidence linking Zach Adams to the scene of Holly's abduction. Still, several witnesses claimed to have seen Zach murder Holly. One notable witness was his then-girlfriend, Rebecca. During the trial, Zach's attorney, Jennifer Thompson, attempted to discredit Rebecca by pointing out her alleged substance use, suggesting a foggy memory. Thompson further claimed that Rebecca had been threatened by TBI agent Valerie Trout, insinuating a motive to lie. Attorney Jennifer Thompson. Attorney Thompson argued that investigators were desperate to assign responsibility for Holly's murder, asserting that they had unfairly targeted her client. Despite all these, and the fact that initial reports indicated Clint's description of the captor did not match Zach Adams's appearance, Zach Adams was found guilty and convicted on September 22, 2017, for the kidnapping, rape, assault, and murder of Holly Bobo. Zach initially faced the death penalty, but he made a plea to serve a life sentence in prison, which was approved. 5 years later, in 2022, Zach appealed for another trial, but the Tennessee Appeals Court denied the request. In 2018, Zach's brother, Dylan Adams, made an offered plea to a lesser charge of facilitation of murder, resulting in the 35-year sentence he was currently serving. On the other hand, Jason Autry was released from prison in September 2020. However, just a few months later, he faced new legal troubles, being indicted on a federal gun charge in 2021. In 2020, Tennessee representatives introduced the Holly Bobo Act, aiming to expand the Tennessee Endangered Persons Alert Program in memory of Holly. The act allows the TBI to issue endangered person alerts for any missing person aged 21 or younger, expanding the previous age limit of 18. This became effective in January 2021. Karen Bobo, during sentencing.
I know that my daughter fought hard for her life. And I know that she begged for her life because my daughter loved and enjoyed life. But you chose to take that from her. And you have shown absolutely, look at me please, you have shown absolutely no remorse for anything that you have done. Finally, after 6.5 years, I do feel that we got justice for our daughter. We have lived a hard life and walked on an extremely unimaginable hard road for 6.5 years. So I did consider that in our decision for the future in hopes that maybe we can start to rebuild what life we have left. And if there is any joy to be found in life anymore, that we can start finding it.
This is Beyond the Crime. Subscribe to uncover the untold stories lurking beneath the surface. Turn on notifications, because the truth, it never sleeps. Leave a like if you believe every whisper in the woods deserves to be heard.